Buddhism is a world religion founded by the Buddha in ancient India. Buddhists seek wisdom, meaning, inner peace, and freedom from greed, hatred, and ignorance. Mutually sustaining life, a Buddhist call to a troubled world.
Always be mindful and at no moment harbor any doubts of the virtue of Avalokiteshvara. He is our strength in suffering, danger, and death. Avalokiteshvara is replete with all virtues. He perceives mankind with the eye of compassion. He is the limitless ocean of happiness. For this reason, let us revere him.
We are pleased to have Professor Gene Reeves with us once again, this time to discuss the role of Guanyin, the Bodhisattva of compassion. Bodhisattvas are awakened beings and are often regarded like the saints are by many Catholics. In the original Sanskrit teachings, Guanyin is known as Avalokiteshvara and is immensely popular in China, Korea, Vietnam, Japan, Tibet, and other countries where Mahayana Buddhism is dominant. In our earlier shows, we discussed the images and learned of the enormous popularity of Bodhisattva, particularly among common people. This concern for ordinary people is reflected in the name Avalokiteshvara, which means the Lord who looks down on the world from on high. In China, Guanyin came to be understood as one who listens to the cries of the world. Guanyin responds not only to calls of religious nature, but also to people seeking protection from misfortune, cures from illness, assurances of longevity, and bestowing of material benefits and worldly success. It is for this reason that thousand-armed Guanyin is popular, for he is able to exhibit 1,000 different ways to respond to a vast array of needs. Well, Gene, great to have you back.
Thank you.
And let me begin by asking you about what you think about Guanyin. And here we have an image of Guanyin.
Well, at least two things.
Two things, okay.
One is that Guanyin brings Buddhism to the common, ordinary people. This Guanyin is sitting on a rock. Not a Lord that looks down from on high, but a Bodhisattva of compassion who is down to earth. And, you know, I've visited hundreds and hundreds of temples and homes in China and Taiwan and Hong Kong, Singapore. Everywhere you go. It doesn't matter if it's a Buddhist temple or a Taoist temple or what kind of home. Everywhere you go, there are statues of Guanyin. And it's because Guanyin is not only, there are two reasons. One is that Guanyin is understood to be a kind of savior, one who can help others. But more importantly, Guanyin is also understood to be a model for us, as someone who can engender compassion in us.
I see.
And be a kind of model in that way. You know, it's quite common for people to think that religion is like climbing to a mountaintop. But Guanyin teaches us the opposite. Guanyin teaches us that as Buddhists, we don't belong on mountaintops. We belong in the low places. In the low and dirty and dark places where people are suffering, with people who are suffering. So as Buddhists, I think we really shouldn't be climbing mountaintops unless it's to be like Martin Luther King Jr., who, you remember that famous Washington speech? He says, I've been to the mountaintop, And I've seen the other side.
Yes, yes.
There's no suggestion that he should stay on the mountaintop. The mountaintop is merely a kind of outlook for seeing what might be. And that's what Guanyin really teaches us, is that we should be with people who are suffering in the low places of this world.
Very nice.
You know, in the Lotus Sutra it says that Guanyin can take on 32 or 33 different forms. It says if someone needs the body of a Buddha or needs to see someone in the body of a Buddha in order to be saved, Guanyin takes on the body of a Buddha. And it goes on. I won't tell you the whole 33, but it comes down to the wife of a peasant, or to a boy, or to a girl, or to a common ordinary person. Well, of course, and you can see in China even to this day depictions of these 32 or 33 forms of Guanyin. But the point is a very interesting one. The point is that this means not only that Guanyin can take various forms, but that we can see Guanyin in all kinds of people.
I see.
In our boss, in our unruly teenage child, in the guy who lives across the street and doesn't behave the way we think he ought to.
Awfully hard.
Awfully hard. It's difficult, but that's the point of the Guanyin devotion, is to help us see Guanyin in anyone we meet.
You know, Gene, one of the fascinating things about the development of Guanyin in China over time was that it underwent the gender transformation. Didn't it go from being a male to female? Well,
yes and no. I would say basically no. That in China, Guanyin became male and female.
And female, both.
Both. And I think, well, just last week actually, I was in Hong Kong and talking with a woman at a beautiful big temple, Japanese, called Myohoji. And I asked her about Guanyin. There was a statue of Guanyin, and then we were talking about her, and she said at some point in the conversation, she said, we don't know whether to call her or him. We don't know whether to say her or him.
I see.
And I think that's correct, because it is both. And I think this is important because it means not only that Guanyin opens up Buddha Dharma or teachings to women, but also opens Buddha Dharma to the woman who's in each of us. Maybe somewhere hidden behind our hearts.
Each of us, you mean each of us men? Men.
That's
so
right.
Women in men.
That's right. So that Guanyin opens up the possibility of men recognizing the woman in themselves.
Interesting perspective, yes.
And it's made an enormous difference. Guanyin devotion has made an enormous difference in contemporary Buddhism. I frankly am inspired by the nuns at Fo-Guang-Shan in Taiwan. And that temple, the master is a man, is a male monk. But there are about 1,200 or 1,400 nuns there.
Wow.
And the kind of work they're doing with poor people and other kinds of problematic situations all over the world is truly inspiring.
You know, do you think that what we just talked about, does this go to demonstrate that Buddhism is not just a philosophy, as some people say, but that it's indeed a religion?
Yeah, I don't know really what would lead people to think that Buddhism is just a philosophy.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of people who say that.
I guess that's right.
Yeah.
I don't happen to know any of them. But in any case, it seems to me that there would be at least two reasons why it would not be appropriate to think of it as merely a philosophy. Of course, there are philosophies within Buddhism.
Yes.
Make no mistake about it. Some very significant philosophies and philosophical ideas. But Buddhism primarily is aimed at inspiring people. It's not merely giving people something to think about, it's giving something to live by. And at least in my understanding of these terms, philosophy and religion, that would make Buddhism a kind of religion. It's kind of something to inspire people and to give them hope and to give them reason to carry on and to develop themselves even in very difficult situations. The second thing that I would want to just mention is that Buddhism, at least in East Asia, I don't know as much about the situation in the States, but in East Asia, Buddhism has a great variety of dimensions. It has monks and nuns and temples. It has rituals. It has sutras. It has all of the kinds of things that, at least in my understanding of it, go to make up a religion, including philosophical ideas and highly developed systems of thought. But it's not merely a system of thought. It's really, at least to my way of thinking, it's really a way of life.
Yes, yes. Perhaps one of the reasons for this is that when it first came into the West, it tended to be very intellectual, and the intellectuals in the West adopted Buddhism, and so you still see that legacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, well, of course, you also can see it a little bit in Bukkyo, where Bukkyo is Buddhist teachings. And there has been an awful lot of emphasis in Buddhism, also in Asia, on teaching. But the point that I think people miss is that in Buddhism, teaching means teaching people how to live.
Yes.
It's not merely conveying ideas and information. It's a matter of, in a variety of ways, both through doctrines, but also through example, through stories, and a wide variety of ways, teaching people how to live.
Actually, I think in the U.S., or at least in the West, you have two groups of people. There are those who primarily study, but there are those who now do primarily practice. And there's some gap there between the two groups. And so
yeah, I actually would want to make an argument for saying that study, it can be a kind of practice.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know if you would agree with that.
So in the end, I think we would agree that in the end, the teachings needs to lead to practice and to people being inspired and inspiring other people.
Yeah, I think we need to be a little bit careful about that, though, because very often in the West, at least my understanding, the word practice has come to mean meditation.
Well,
and I wouldn't want to say that.
I'm not saying that either. I would include other forms.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so for us, I think that the important form of practice, if we use that term, the important form of practice is what we call the Bodhisattva way. It's the way of developing our Buddha nature through helping others. And it's a matter of how we live our lives, not just how we think about the world, but how we live in the world.
Well, Gene, it was very fascinating, and I think you've helped to fill out the picture of Buddhism in ways that we haven't been able to do so far. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you
for joining again.
My fun.
Well, we hope that you enjoyed today's discussion, and as a result, we'll be even more attuned to the spirit of compassion that embraces all of our lives in many different ways. Next week, our theme moves to the topic of impermanence or change, the third mark of existence. See you then.
We at Bukkyo Dendo Kyokai pursue peace and happiness for people around the world. We have published the Buddhist teachings into 41 languages and donated our publication to hotels and other facilities in 55 countries. We would like to share the Buddhist teachings with people around the world. That's our mission. Visit our website for more information.